Hello everyone. So before we get started, if you are enjoying the videos and find them informative, why don't you go ahead and think about liking and subscribing? It really does help out, and I want to do this full time. I just want to help y'all learn how to make games. It's what I love to do. And then, once you do that, have a great day. Otherwise, you know what? I still want you to have a great day. So, with that out of the way, this shameless plug, let's get into the video. So we've got our character running around, we got our hotbar we can scroll, and we can pick up some stuff. Now what we need to start working on is our menu. So we'll get our window on screen, get it set up so we can start manipulating our inventory slots later on, and we'll set it up so we can have different windows depending on what we need for our game. So let's jump over into ours. So first thing we need to do is actually establish that menu window. So let's go into our UI elements, and we're going to right click, create a user interface of a widget blueprint. This will be our UI underscore menu. Let us call it menu. Double click and open that up. Now, the first thing we need to add is our canvas panel. The way I'm doing this one is kind of similar to Stardew, so it's just going to be a window that fills the whole screen when you have it open. So we'll right click and wrap that with a scale box, and then wrap it with a size box. Set those width and height overrides, 1920 by 1080. Then we'll add our background image, anchored to the full screen. Set the tint of it to whatever you want it to be. This is for the main window, so I'm going to set it to like a light blue. Then we will add in a horizontal box. Sometimes I get horizontal and vertical confused in my head. Then we'll anchor it to the top left. This is what's going to hold our selection buttons. So anchor it to the top left, position X50, position Y50, just to get it up in the top corner. And then we'll just stretch it out a bit, then we'll add our buttons and adjust it. Now let's go grab a button and throw it in. And then we'll add a text on top of that will tell us what this button's for. So this first one is going to be our inventory. Then we'll set up the look of our button. So for normal, I want it to be kind of dark. When it's hovered, I want it to be even darker. So 0.1 for normal, 0.01 for hovered, and then 0.1 back for pressed. Set the look of our font. I want it to be italic and say about 20. Of course, you can customize these any way you want. This is just what I'm doing for the video. Then we'll name this our INV button. Right click and duplicate it, and it should automatically move it to the right. For the text on this one will be our map. It will shrink a little bit, but we'll be able to fix that in just a second, or make it to where it is less noticeable at least. Let's see, map button. Right click and duplicate again. This will be our status. So where we can check our characters level, farming level. Use the same naming conventions. Something I gotta remind myself of. Duplicate it one more time, and then we'll set this to be our settings, where we'll be able to adjust volume or etc. Settings button. Now we can grab that horizontal box and kind of adjust it the way we need it. We can also add some padding. We can also add some Well, I thought you could. We'll just add the padding on the button. So we'll just put 5. We can control select all of them and adjust them all at the same time. We'll just add 5 to all of them there. I thought you could do it on the horizontal box for the children of it, but I guess not. So it doesn't seem like it needs to be quite that wide, so we'll say about 5, 10, and then stretched out like that. Nah, we'll say about 75. I think that's what I used in the other one. This blue might get kind of hard on the eyes if you have to look at it too much. Let's darken it a little bit. Maybe make it a little see-through. Nah, because then you can see the background. Let's just do it that way. That's dynamite. Alright, so we can minimize all the text on those because we don't need that. Oh, we do need to select our background image and set that it is not a variable. Unless you want it to be a variable that can update depending on where you're at. Or maybe the seasons in your game, you can set it to where this is an image that updates. I'm not going to do that though. So we're going to add in a border. This will be our main display panel, the thing that holds the what window we're looking at. So the alignment, I've got it anchored to the center. I'm going to set its alignment to 0.5 on both. Position X and Y is set at 0, and then we'll just stretch it out to fit where we need. And I think the one I had was 1000 by 650, and it seemed to fit a good area. Then you can have other things in the sides if you wanted, and this gives you plenty of room to really kind of work with in-game. And for the brush color of this, it doesn't matter because we're going to fill it with other things, so I'm just going to set its alpha to 0 so we don't see that image. Cool, and then we're going to name that our main window. Now we're going to add a widget switcher. This is what will allow us to just kind of pop through between the different things that we got. We'll drop it in there, and we won't be able to see anything at first because we actually have to establish our windows to go into it. So let's go do that now. So we're going to right click, user interface, widget blueprint, user widget, yes, UI underscore inventory window, and we'll establish the parameters of this one, and then we'll go back and duplicate it to make our others. So we'll add our canvas panel, wrap it with our scale box and size box, and instead of fill screen, I want it to be custom on screen because I want it to be the 1000 by 650, basically to match that border size, which the size box will also match. It was 1000 by 650, right? Yeah. And just to kind of show you all what the widget switcher does, you don't have to follow along with this part. I'm just going to do a little demonstration real quick. So I'm going to add an image real quick, and then, well, you will want to do the duplicate. So duplicate it, UI underscore, this will be map window, and for this one I'm just going to change the color of this to, this is the part you don't have to follow along with, changing the color of that image. Now when I come in here, I can get those windows, and I'll drop it on the switcher, and let me get my map window and also drop it on the switcher. And what's handy about this is you can set the active widget index, and it works like an array in descending order. So inventory window is item 0, map window is item 1. So when I set this to 1, it'll change over to that widget in its hierarchy. So what you can do is use these buttons to set that widget switcher to a different index so that it will just, as many as you got, you can have that many buttons and just cycle through. So we will just continue duplicating these out. Duplicate, and it is UI underscore, this was our status window, and then duplicate one more time for our UI underscore settings window. The only one we're going to work on today is our inventory window, but we will get to these down the line. So let's open our inventory window. And I want its background to be kind of a brownish, I guess. Kind of gives that farmer rustic. I mean, that's what Stardew and them got, right? I guess you will need to add the image. But we don't need it as a variable, again, unless you want it to be changeable. I do not. Then we are going to add a uniform grid panel. This will be the thing that holds all our items. We will anchor it to the full screen and just set its offsets to match. Now the way I'm going to set up the inventory is I want it to always have all the item buttons that will be available in the game to be displayed. Whether we have access to those items will depend on our backpack size, but for now that's what we're going to do. So this will be our inventory panel, and make sure that it is a variable. So let's go into the graph, and we're going to do this on the pre-construct so that we can kind of see it as we're building it and make sure it looks the way we want it to. Then we'll adjust it. So when we construct our inventory window, we want to do a for loop, because we're going to want to loop through, and this is where we'll determine how many our max items in game will be allowed to be. So let's see, last index, I think 10 rows of 5 seems pretty good, so I'm going to set this to 49 because it works like an array. It'll work with our inventory array when we add it in, and this will just, yeah, you know. Then we'll create widget. I almost wrote create window. And we want to create our inventory icon. Now we don't have any item info to feed into it just yet, so we are going to add those variables over here. This will be our inventory. That is an item info size, not info size, item info struct, and we'll make that an array. We will also need our inventory size, which is our integer. It is singular, because anything above our inventory size we're going to set to be disabled. So we will grab out our inventory. We will get a copy, but first we will check to see if it is a valid index. Because if we don't have anything in that slot in our inventory, then we don't want to try to add the item info. We want to just tell it, oh, it's blank. So over here, when we're setting the item info, we will do a select. And we'll check to see if it's valid. And if it's not valid, we can check a make. But it should be fine with the default settings as long as it's black and it's just got nothing going on. So we don't really need that. If it is valid, then we'll feed in our true index info that we're getting. Now we will add this to an array so that we will promote this to be our inventory icons, because when we start swapping items, we'll be able to get the item info and the index of it and be able to adjust our inventory and our hotbar and everything based on the index of this array. So it'll make it easier to compare later on. Then once we do this, we will get our inventory panel, and we're going to add child to uniform grid. The item that we're adding is the UI widget that we just created. Let's promote row and column both to variables. Column is your left and right movement in your panels in your uniform grid. So it'll be like item 0, item 1, item 2, item 3 this way. And row is up and down, so 0, 1, 2, 3. So every time we add an item to our uniform grid, we want to increment this column length to tell it move to the next slot, basically. Once we do, we want to see if that number is greater than 9, because this will also start at 0, so once we get to 9, that's actually the 10th item. If it is, we'll add a branch, because once it gets to that point, we want to reset it back to 0 so that it moves all the way back to the left, and then we increment our row so that it moves down a row and then starts the process over again. So if we compile, since we're doing this on the pre-construct, we should be able to come out and see that it's populating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 by 5. So that's working the way we want it to. Huzzah. Now you may notice if you go back, it's because we're doing it on the pre-construct, and every time it does this, it counts it as it's constructing the info. So at the very beginning, when we open the window, we want to get our inventory panel, and we're going to clear its children. We will get our inventory icons, and we will clear that as well. Then we will set our row and our column back to 0, just to kind of, default everything out so that when it builds up, it builds fresh. And then every time we go back, that's dynamite. Now, since we have our inventory panel available, we can kind of customize how it looks in here. So if we have that selected, we can go to its offsets and padding and all that. So slot padding, I'm going to say, was it 5 or 10? 20? No, 15. Split the difference, 12.5. That looks alright. This image, not a variable, okay. So this row of items is going to be our hotbar. So what's in our hotbar will be right here. So we can add a little visual element in order to kind of tell the player that's what that is. But in order to do that, let's grab our inventory panel and set its Z order to 1, just so that it's at the very top and the buttons don't get hidden by any images. We'll add an image to our canvas panel, and we'll just kind of size it up to fit. I'm going to set its anchor all the way across, and then size Y is down here, offset left 2.5, just to kind of get it off the walls of it. Make sure it's not a variable. We'll draw it as a rounded box, but I'm going to set it to be a fixed height radius and 8 for the corner radius, just because I like the way that little rounded looks. Then we'll just kind of that looks good enough. Then you can set it to be whatever color you want it to be. I'm going to set it to be kind of a darkish red, just to add a little differentiation. Probably wouldn't go with black, because the buttons are going to be black, so when you first open it, it'll just look like nothing's there. But red kind of gives you that idea that this is different, and this is action oriented because of red color theory, all that jazz, So it's looking basically the way I want it to look for now. So we will go in here and we're going to get rid of that pre-construct. And we're going to add a custom event and just call it refresh inventory. It will have an input. It'll actually have 2 inputs, but let's set the first one. It will be the inventory item. Nope, not it, me. Item info. And just like the other one, it will be an array. And then we'll have our inventory size. Now you may be wondering, why not just make them instance editable and expose them on spawn? And it's because we are going to have this sitting inside of another widget. So you probably could, but since it's going to be instantiated as soon as this one's instantiated, it just makes it easier to just feed it in this way. So when we refresh our inventory, we will set it. We'll set our inventory size to this inventory size, and then we'll plug it in there. This will also let us be able to call this, like if we open the menu and then close it and then open it again, we can just call this refresh and it'll get our updated inventory and display it accordingly. So now over in our menu, when we do our pre-construct, we will get our widget switcher and set the widget index. Let's see. Set active widget index to 0. This is basically, as we're opening the menu, what do we want it to do? And we'll grab our inventory button, inventory window, and we'll call that refresh inventory. Now we'll promote this to a variable. Inventory, yeah, that works. Same thing with the inventory size. Yeah. Now these will be instance editable and expose on spawn. Grab that. Instance editable, expose on spawn. We will also have to do the refresh, but this will be a good way of the first time. When we first open it, we can just set those right there. So we'll save everything real quick, and let's go take a look at our inventory window. That's dynamite. And that's looking good. Since we're doing that on the pre-construct, it's showing up as well. If you'd rather, you could feed in. Yeah, we're going to need to do that anyway. Alright, custom event. Display menu update, or update menu, whatever you want to call it. And we'll just do our inventory here. Item info. It's just probably better to stay consistent with the way we're doing it. So this will be, oops, inventory size, and just like that. So we'll do that. And over here we'll just set that just like that, just to make it more consistent. And then we can disable these being instance editable and expose on spawn, because we'll just, when we create the window, we'll just do it the other way. So we'll go into our player blueprint. We have our main player HUD. This is the wrong, I need the event graph. So now we need to set up a function to actually do that. In the next one we'll go over and kind of clean up and tidy up everything. But for now we're just going to go, I'm going to add this to a keyboard event, so if you type 1 it's easier to get one. I'm going to set this to be the M key. You can set it to whatever you want except escape, because that's hard to use inside the editor and test. You can change it later if you want to, but I'm doing it here. Now we're going to add a branch because this is going to be a toggle, so it'll toggle on, toggle off. This deselect that condition variable so that when we promote it, we can say B menu open, and it will be defaulted to false. If you promote it while it's true, it'll be defaulted to true. So when our menu is not open and we've pressed the button, we want to create our widget that will be our menu. We're going to promote this to a variable that will be our menu widget ref. Then we'll call our display menu update. We're actually going to grab this and put this way up here because we're going to go back and create, we're going to add to this in just a second. So we'll grab our inventory component, get our inventory out of it. Go lay down, buddy. I'm taking y'all out in just a minute. Get our inventory size. And we'll feed those in just like that. And the reason I kind of have it set up like this is because I'm actually going to move this to the side, grab our menu widget reference, convert it to a validated get, and plug it in here. So if it's not valid, then we'll create it. And if it is valid, then we'll just do our display update on it. Then we want to grab that and add to viewport. I guess nap time's over. Because if it's not valid, we create it, set that reference, and then display it. If it is valid, then we don't need to create it because we don't want to just create over and over again. So we'll just display the update and then add it to viewport. Then we will set that our menu is open. Now if our menu is open, that means we want to get our menu widget reference, double check it by converting it to a validated get, and then just remove from parent, which will just take it off our screen. It doesn't destroy the reference, it just removes it from the screen. Then we will set that our menu no longer open. We're also going to need to get the player controller and set the input mode accordingly. So when we're removing it from the screen, we're going back to just game only for our inputs. And when we're opening our menu, we're going to set input mode to game and UI. I'm going to drop this down here because I'll just add this like that. Then we're going to set show mouse cursor, and we'll plug both ends into it just like that. The reason I'm doing it that way is because we have this menu variable, this boolean, so we can just feed it in right here and it'll update it depending on whether our menu is open or not. So let's double check that. And I can open my menu. I have nothing in my backpack right now. I open my menu. I've got stuff in my backpack. Cool. So it looks kind of bad because I'm not full screen, but so there's our inventory being updated. So we'll set up this widget switcher real quick, and then the next one we'll start working on the swapping the item around with the drag and drop stuff. So let's go into our menu, golly. And we're going to go to each of our buttons and add an on-clicked event. So the map button, our stats button, I'm going to try to keep them in order. Since it's inventory map status settings, I just want it to be inventory map status settings. So we'll grab our widget switcher and we're going to set active index, active widget index. Plug that in there. Control C, Control V to duplicate it and paste it. Make sure we plug in that target. Grab both of these, Control C, Control V. Drop it down like that, and then update the numbers. So 0, 1, 2, and 3. Now I actually only have I think, the 2 in there right now. So let's go back to our widget switcher. We'll get our status window, and then our settings window, and just like that. Now we don't really need to do, you can if you want to. When you switch back to your inventory window, you could do your refresh, but because the way we're doing this, the menu's open, you can't really pick up anything just yet. It should be fine. So we'll go to map, status. I think those just have the same color, so settings will change to be like a greenish for now, just so we can see the actual difference. And then the status will check to a kind of purplish. Bump in, got our inventory, our map, our status, and our settings, and we can close it, go pick up stuff, and then it defaults back to our inventory screen. Yada yada, it's looking good. Alright, so you can prettify this any way you want to. This is just going over the functionality. Design is completely up to you. So I will see y'all in the next one where we'll start. Oh, no. One more thing. At the very end, we need to use our inventory size to determine whether this is an active widget or not, because right now they're just all being displayed as fully available. Get out of the bathroom, boy. So, no, go lay down. Almost. So we want to see if this index is greater than our inventory size. We'll subtract 1 from it to get it in line with an array. And after we create it, we want to set enabled. Set whether it is enabled or not. And it'll be based on that Boolean. So now when we open our menu, I did the wrong one. We want to see if it's less than. If our index is less than. Actually, I think it's less than or equal to. Yeah. If it's less than or equal to our inventory size, then we want it. Yeah, so now anything above it is disabled. I swear, they're like children. Anywho, that'll cover it for now. Now we got it to where when we go and update our inventory, we'll get access to more slots later on. And I will see y'all in the next one to get ready for drag and drop functionality. See y'all there.